Happy Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Morning JOX. Conrad Van Order and Damian Mitchell here with you as we get you set for week 3 of the college football season. No, I will not repeat the depressing stat from yesterday about how far along we are in the season almost, but we are certainly chugging along here in the 2025 college football season and already been a pretty interesting one, I would say, based on some of the surprising upsets and struggles that we've seen from certain programs here through the first 2 weeks of the season. So hopefully it continues, at least from the craziness standpoint, for the rest of the season, because it makes our jobs a heck of a lot easier and a lot more fun. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate you making us a part of your morning each and every day here on JOX. And let's hit the ground running today, Damian. Let's go through. I want to spend some time today talking about both Auburn and Alabama, right? What do we still want to see from them after 2 weeks? Now with Auburn, they're taking on South Alabama. Alabama, a little bit of a step up with Wisconsin coming to town. So a good test for both of these programs. Or what are some things that we still need to see from them after the first couple of weeks? I would say Auburn actually one of the schools that maybe has shown the least warts so far. At least through 2 games of the season. But I think it's interesting that, even with that, there's things that you can always improve on. And similarly for Alabama, right? You have a tale of 2 games, right? The ULM game, not a whole lot you can improve on. Certainly still things to improve on. But anytime you beat somebody 73-0, you're going to feel really good about that. And then obviously the Florida State game, on the other hand, just about every single thing that they put on tape that day needed to be improved. So we'll dive into that discussion a little bit later, things you want to see from Auburn and Alabama this weekend. But let's just go through what you have coming up this weekend, because while maybe you don't have a number 1 versus a number 2 or 1 versus 3 matchup, whatever it ended up being when it was Texas and Ohio State, maybe you don't have the which Death Valley is the real Death Valley matchup between an LSU and a Clemson, but you have some really, really good games, and you have some really good SEC games as well. So quickly, we'll just run through. This is what you have coming up for you this weekend. We'll start around the SEC and then some games outside the SEC that are going to be great as well. So you're going to have at 11 a.m. on Saturday, you're going to have Oklahoma and Temple. You're going to have Wisconsin traveling to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. So that should be a good game there in Tuscaloosa. At 11:45, you're going to have South Alabama at Auburn. And then at 2:30, you're going to get the big game of the day. That's going to be Georgia at Tennessee. So that's a top 15 matchup there with number 6 Georgia and number 15 Tennessee. And if you have been paying attention through the week, the line on that game has only shrunk. It is now just 3.5 in favor of Georgia as we sit here on Wednesday morning. But you're going to Missouri. They're taking on the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns at 3 o'clock. Texas is playing UTEP at 3:15. You got Mississippi State, Alcorn State at 5. You've got Arkansas and Ole Miss. I think that's an interesting game there in Oxford. That's going to be at 6. Then at 6:30, you got Florida LSU and Baton Rouge. Maybe a little more interesting a week ago, but we'll see if Sunbelt Billy can get his team to bounce back in a big way against LSU. Then it's also at 6:30. You have Texas A&M at Notre Dame, and you have Eastern Michigan and Kentucky. Because we're going to watch that one, right? And then at 6:45, you've got Vanderbilt at South Carolina. So especially just there in that late slate, right? I mean, you've got between 6 and 7 o'clock, you've got Arkansas, Ole Miss, Florida LSU, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and Vanderbilt, South Carolina all kicking off within an hour of each other. It's just going to be, I think it's going to be a fantastic day. You're also going to have Akron at UAB. That's going to be at 7:30 on Saturday for you Blazer fans out there. And then you're going to have Clemson at Georgia Tech. And just based on what happened last weekend against Troy and maybe in hindsight, some of the things that we saw against LSU, I think that could end up being an interesting game. I will just say that. And then, of course, I think the biggest game outside the conference that people are going to be excited for because of how they've started the season, you have Miami hosting the newly ranked South Florida Bulls in a game that has a very, very similar point spread to the South Florida game last week. We saw how that one ended, so I will just leave that one there as well. But going to be a fantastic weekend of college football, all things considered. So for you, Damian, out of all those games, just kind of going through it, what are some of the ones that stick out to you? What are the ones you're most excited for? Because I mean, seriously, that's about 10 games that we just gave you right there that, in my opinion, are essentially like must-watch television this weekend.
Yeah, especially in the SEC. I think that Texas A&M Notre Dame game, just 2 weeks into the season, has a different feel to it. Like it doesn't, last year when it was opening up the season, yeah, it was highly anticipated. But it was also Mike Elko's first game as the head coach of Texas A&M. Now he's kind of gotten where he wants this team to be, and taking that trip to South Bend, it looks a little bit different because again, Notre Dame, they put up a great fight against Miami, fell a little short, but it's kind of a measuring stick for both teams of, okay, if you're Notre Dame, it's okay, can we suffered a loss last year, Northern Illinois ran the table. Now can we do the same thing with Miami? And for Texas A&M, it's okay, are we for real? Are we there yet? Are we at that mountaintop where we can have the conversation of us being potentially in the college football playoff? And of course, Georgia, Tennessee. Man, this game could go either way. Like this is probably the one of very few years that we've seen this matchup where you could have legitimate arguments on both sides. And I'm in a tug of war with this game. I really am. And for me personally, Ole Miss and Arkansas, because on one end,
we're gonna learn a lot about Arkansas.
My heart is definitely set for hotty toddy. Like we're gonna go out there and handle our business.
But you're a Taylor Green guy.
Huge Taylor Green guy. So it's if the good Taylor Green shows up, this game could be 64-65 for all we know. But when I look at the landscape of it all, the Georgia Tech Clemson matchup, because I feel like Vegas is really starting to. I feel like Vegas is starting to realize, like, hey, there's a lot of money on Georgia Tech coming in, and also is Clemson still Clemson, and what we've seen the past 2 weeks, but. For the sample size that we've gotten early on through 2 weeks of the season, going into week 3. Now it's time for people to buckle in their seatbelt and get ready for what college football is really about, and especially with so many conference games coming up, this is kind of the start of something that could be really, really special of a college football season.
Yeah, and this very well may be. I know there's some fantastic weekends coming up over the course of the season, but this could be one of the better ones, I think, when it's all said and done, just in terms of the quality of the games that you're going to see. And you mentioned for some schools, right, this is kind of your last tune-up, right? For Auburn, you've got this game against South Alabama. Next weekend, boom, Oklahoma. And we've seen how good Oklahoma's looked, obviously, to start it off. And I mean, honestly, for Auburn, that starts your, right now you've got a stretch where after this game, your next 4 opponents, at least as of right now, are all in the top 25 with Oklahoma, A&M, Georgia, and Missouri. And like Damian was saying, right, maybe we'll see something with Arkansas this weekend that makes you feel a certain type of way about them the rest of the way. And maybe we were underestimating the Hogs a little bit if they can pull off an upset there in Oxford. But yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I'm really excited too. I think this game is flying under the radar. And a little upset watch for me definitely is Vanderbilt and South Carolina. And I think that's a game that, again, maybe we see the version of South Carolina that we've been waiting to see, or we're maybe expecting to see the season. We just haven't yet. And look, I know that this is not the sole indicator of who's going to win a matchup or anything like that, but we have seen both of them play the same opponent already this year in Virginia Tech. And South Carolina, they won that game 24-11. But if you remember, a lot of that game, it was 10-8 South Carolina, and then they kind of pulled away. Now, to be fair, Vanderbilt did not have the best start against Virginia Tech. However,
and they turned it on.
They did win that game 44-20.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, of the two matchups, Vanderbilt, the more impressive team when they played Virginia Tech. So maybe that translates onto the field on Saturday, and Vanderbilt's going to be a big winner over a top 11 team there in South Carolina. But I think that one's very interesting, and especially for a Vanderbilt team that it's like, okay, are they going to have the magic like last year? Are they going to go and beat some people they're not supposed to? But then similarly for South Carolina, right, are you going to have, welcome to the SEC, right? You finally kind of started to feel good about yourself. You got some hype, you got some momentum, and now you're stumbling against the teams that, you probably thought, we're not going to have too much trouble with those programs anymore. But so is life in the SEC. So yeah, there's just so many great games. And we can dive a little more into those over the next couple of days, but just a couple there. And I know I think the Tennessee and Georgia game is just so fascinating it feels like the best opportunity that Tennessee's had in a while to actually win that game. And I know, going back a couple years, I know the Hendon Hooker year, I think, there was a lot of maybe optimism about that one and it didn't go very well. But I think this one, I think you could argue that this is maybe Josh Heupel's best chance to actually win that football game.
In hindsight, I think last year you had him last year. Now looking at it, had you had a different quarterback,
Okay, yeah,
that game looks a little bit different. And you were on the road in Athens. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're at home in Neyland this time.
Oh, that definitely helps.
It helps. And Georgia still, like the Austin P game, just doesn't feel comfortable. Like it just doesn't feel like did Georgia really put their best foot forward against an Austin P team? I know there was a delay in certain things. So you still have some question marks about Georgia coming into it, and then Tennessee, you're missing both of your starting corners. So does Georgia say, finally, let's empty the clip and let's Gunner Stockton throw this thing all over the yard and let their DBs make the plays? So you kind of look at it both sides of it. I think it's going to be an absolutely electric game. I really do. But then there's also been times where Georgia's going out there and did what they needed to do rather quickly. And then you realize after a couple plays, like, okay, this game is not going to go the way you thought it was. But, I mean, and to your point about South Carolina and Vanderbilt, had we talked about this game a couple years ago, it's like, okay, yeah, that game was at 11 o'clock. Like, it's a good warm-up.
Yeah,
to
it's
start
11
a.m.
SEC Network Plus game. Yeah.
Right. Now it's,
yeah.
Okay, if Vanderbilt knocks off South Carolina, the conversation about Vanderbilt is a little bit different. And then if South Carolina knocks off Vanderbilt, it's, okay, now we can start to iron out where the hierarchy of the SEC begins and where it ends. So, I mean, this whole weekend slate, I think, especially in the conference, is going to be entertaining.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Getting multiple conference games, you had one last week, obviously, with Ole Miss and Kentucky, and now getting into week 3, you got a couple more. And then really, really going to get the ball rolling here over the next 2 weeks as we'll be full-fledged into SEC play. So a lot to be excited about. A lot of games for us to break down and discuss for you over the next couple of days. But we do want to talk some Alabama and Auburn with you. And we'll start with the Auburn Tigers on the other side. So what are some things through 2 weeks, right? You have the win over Baylor, which still, very impressive win. Great way to start the season. Then you have a performance last week against Ball State that, you did what you needed to do, right? So now what did you maybe see in the difference from week 1 to week 2? Did you see any improvements? Granted, barring the opponent was a step down in competition from Baylor. But what are those concerns? What are the things that you still need to see Auburn continue to improve on? Because as we mentioned, Oklahoma is going to roll into town, and it could be a big matchup there to start off the SEC slate for the Auburn Tigers. So we want to hear from you, 205-834-9450. That'll get you on GMC text line. What do you want to see from the Auburn Tigers against South Alabama as they get closer and closer to that SEC opener against the Oklahoma Sooners? We'll give you our thoughts. We'll get some of yours as well on the other side. That's all next here on JOX. 6:18. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on your Wednesday morning. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell with you until 7 o'clock. And then we will hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning. Started off today's show just giving you a quick overview of this weekend slate of games. Not only a lot of great games in the SEC, of course, but even some outside of it. And so if this is, I'll just say this. I feel bad if you got a lot of plans this weekend, right? Especially, and I know certain things happen. I can't say anything, right? I got married in the fall, right? But it's that time of year too, right? Maybe you're in a wedding. It's like, man, really hope it's not this weekend. It's this weekend. And you looked at the slate of games, and it would just be a great Saturday to spend a lot of time on your couch.
But in your defense, you got married on a Friday night.
Yes, we
yeah.
very intentionally got married on a Friday because we're not trying to compete with college football. I love my wife very much, but college football pays the bills. So that is how it works when we got married on a Friday night, and I appreciate her being supportive of that. But anyways, we want to get a little bit into the upcoming games for both Alabama and Auburn. What are we looking to see from both of those programs here now in week 3 of the college football season? So we'll start off with the Auburn Tigers. So they're taking on South Alabama. They're on the Plains. Quick look at South Alabama, 1-1 on the season. Started off with a 38-21 win over Morgan State. And then they lost in week 2 to Tulane, 33-31. So that's how they find themselves at 1-1 coming into the game here against Auburn. If you remember, they lost their starting quarterback, Gio Lopez. He is now at North Carolina. So they had some new faces there, some new prominent figures, at least offensively there for South Alabama coming into this season. And as far as Auburn goes, is with this matchup, Damian, a couple of things that I think you need to see, or at least for me, I would look for from the Auburn Tigers. I think the first one, and really maybe the only real criticism you could have from the Ball State game is I know, the offense, the passing game could have looked a little bit better at times. But I think generally speaking, right, it's the fact your offensive line gave up 5 sacks. And I know part of that, right, that's not all on the offensive line. Part of the problem that you had at times was Jackson Arnold maybe holding the football a little bit too long, and that's gonna play into that, right, and into the sacks. But I think going up against another team like this, I'll just say this, that Oklahoma defense that I saw against Michigan, that defense is pretty good. They get after it, and so I think this is a good opportunity to try to shore some of those things up, because I thought week 1, right, against Baylor, I thought the offensive line played incredible for Auburn. I thought they were really, really, really good all around. And then I think you maybe took a step back in some areas last week. Can you now get back to where you were for the Baylor game? Because we know obviously how important the offensive line is and how important the trenches are, especially once you get into actual SEC play. So that would be one thing for me, is just can the offensive line shore some things up and kind of learn a little bit from last week, because they were so good in week 1. Can you get a little bit closer to that level of performance? And then I mentioned the passing game. I think, again, right, if the game allows you would probably like to air it out again, because I think for Jackson Arnold, right, it's just about getting reps, right, getting comfortable, getting the timing down. You can already tell he's got pretty good chemistry with a lot of the receivers, but just some of the reps, again, the decision-making, knowing where to go with the football. It's just about having a better command of the offense, right? And so I think you want to give him as many opportunities to do that this game before you get into the most difficult part of your schedule coming up starting next week. And then I think on the defensive side of it, right, it's just, can the defensive front continue to do what they do? You're tied for the lead, the nation lead in sacks as a defense right now with 10. Can you continue to get after the quarterback this week? And then the secondary, can they continue to show progress from the game against Baylor? Because I think coming out of that game, that maybe would have been the biggest concern that people had is, you gave up over 400 yards to Sawyer Robinson. Granted, really good quarterback. He's just going to do that to some teams. But again, can that secondary that we've heard so many good things about throughout the offseason continue to improve and get better and better? Because yeah, you played Sawyer Robinson last week, but you're about to have to play John Mateer and Marcel Reed and Bo Pribula, and, need to get those guys warmed up. So those are some of the things for me, Damian, that I look at for Auburn and go, man, would be really good to see those against South Alabama. They're going to handle their business. I'm not worried about that at all. It's just, how good does it look more than anything?
Yeah, to your point, offensively, I got kind of like the pick your poison, keep it going. Keep the pick your poison on offense rolling, because, again, to your point about the passing game, you made a choice going into the game plan that, hey, we want to air it out a little bit more, and you had success, and really just continuing finding ways to get your playmakers the football. And also when you have to run the ball, yeah, we understand Darrell Robinson, he's going to be out for a while. Damari Alston is not going to play, but you still have quality backs in that backfield where the running back by committee is still handling their business. You got Jeremiah Cobb. You truly unlocked what Jeremiah Cobb can be. He's a home run hitter waiting to happen. Like, anytime he gets the ball, he's bound to take one deep. And to your point about the offensive line, just continuing to find that consistency. And again, because of what the road is going down the road, as far as for Auburn, because of what the SEC looks like, you want to fine tune a lot of these things this week. Of, okay, this is what we run exceptionally well. Let's continue to lean into this. And then defensively, your defensive line continue to dominate up front, because a lot of these teams, especially kind of when you look at the whole landscape of college football for now, offensive line is kind of the biggest question mark for a lot of teams. And I think for Auburn, what you can really hang your hat on is your defensive line continuing to cause disruption for everybody offensively. Again, no matter how you slice it up, yes, Ball State's not a good team, but they still were held to -3 rushing yards. That's
hard to do.
That's
for
hard
anybody.
to do against anybody.
I mean, you fall forward and you get a couple.
Right, and they held Ball State to -3 rushing yards. So can you continue to stifle up front and win the battle of the trenches with your defensive line? And again, no disrespect to South Alabama, but you're a little undermanned compared to what Auburn has and the bodies that they can continue to rotate. You see what Keyron Crawford has been able to do off the edge, and then you look at a guy somebody I hadn't really heard much of, Xavier Atkins. There's the outside linebacker. So I think that collectively, that front seven for Auburn, can you continue to dominate the game and truly make people or make offenses get uncomfortable or, go off script and make them throw it a little bit more? And also challenges your secondary. Like, can you continue what you were able to do? Sylvester Smith was laying people out last week. Can he keep that up? Especially, when you get into conference play as well, because there are moments on the field where he kind of disappears, and then there's other moments where he has like a Ball State game where it's, okay, he's laying the lumber. So can you find the consistency defensively to, one, continue to cause disruption and also take a little bit off your secondary, which is kind of the weaker point of the defense, or the question marks continue for that side of the ball. But I do think that they continue. I do think that they would be able to handle their business with South Alabama and still continue to be the dominating force that they are defensively.
Yeah, and I mean, this is certainly, right, no disrespect. It's not an SEC opponent, but it is a step up, in my opinion, from what you got last week against Ball State, right? Like, it is a better team than what you faced last week, and so there will be a little more resistance. I am curious from your perspective, Damien, because, you played the position in college. You have a great eye for receivers. I'm just curious kind of your takeaways, because we didn't really get to see them a whole lot in the Baylor game. Obviously, they were just running it down their throat for 60 minutes, but you got to see a little more from Cam Coleman and Singleton and Horatio Fields, guys like that last week. I didn't know if you had any takeaways from what you've seen from the receivers as well, because I think they've looked pretty good, right? It's just about, again, continuing to grow that passing game, and I think growing Jackson Arnold's confidence more than anything.
Yeah, I think for me, personnel-wise, I would like to see more packages where you have defenses in binds. Like, if you can put an Eric Singleton and Malcolm Simmons and Cam Coleman all on the same side in a trip set, like, that would really cause some coverage issues, because you really don't know what to expect. But I think for all the guys, especially like the Horatio Fields, a guy that Hugh Freeze has really been high on for a while, he's starting to make plays. He's almost in that Keandre Lambert-Smith role where you'll look up and he's got about 65, 70 yards, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that's one we forgot about. But I think the dynamic ability that you have with Eric Singleton, you just give him the ball any way you possibly can, because he's an explosive play waiting to happen. And I do think the development of Malcolm Simmons as well, because he's not the biggest receiver. He's one of the fastest for sure, but you kind of see they kind of move him around a little bit. I like what I'm seeing with Cam Coleman being a little bit more physical. Ball State, I think, I think they realize that they can't really go man to man in certain situations. So they kind of put their defensive backs in a lot of off coverage, which made it a lot easier throws for Jackson just to get his guys the ball and let them do what they do best. But I think overall the development that you're seeing from that room for all, especially for Auburn, it's trending in the right direction. And these guys are continuing to make plays when their numbers called. And again, that's kind of one of those things where they haven't necessarily asked to be in a shootout yet, because you look at the score of Baylor, but it was dominated by the run game. But in a situation that they have to get kind of pass happy, you think that the tools that they have, they're going to be hard to stop.
Well, there you have it. There's a breakdown of what we want to see from the Auburn Tigers this Saturday as they will host South Alabama. That game going to kick off around 11:45 a.m. there from the Plains. But we want to hear from you as well. 205-834-9450 on the courtesy GMC text line. Some of your texts coming in, what you want to see from the Tigers this weekend as well. We'll get to some of those, and we'll take a look at the Alabama side of things. Alabama welcoming in the Wisconsin Badgers. What do we want to see the Crimson Tide do as an encore for the ULM performance next week? We'll give you our thoughts, get some more of yours on the courtesy GMC text line as well. That's all coming up next on Morning Jocks. Appreciate you tuning us in the Wednesday morning edition of Morning Jocks. Conrad and Damien here with you until 7 o'clock when we will hand you off to McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Man, that was my favorite song in like ninth grade. Big fan of that song when that one came out.
Yeah, it used to be B-team layup lines for me. Takes me back.
I think every high school basketball team in the country had that song played during layup lines during that time period. So, yeah, that one always takes me back a little bit there. But we were talking last segment about Auburn and what we want to see from the Auburn Tigers coming up as they will host South Alabama coming up this Saturday. And some of you with your thoughts coming in on the text line as well, as we're going to get into Alabama here in just a moment, but we'll go to the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450 if you want to get involved as well. But a couple of your thoughts coming in. This one says, watching South Alabama, Auburn will need to do quarterback run to gain yards this weekend. They will be able to pass a little bit, but if they rely on the pass, it might end up being a closer game. They also add "Go Jags" at the end. So that tells you where.
I got you. I will say this: if you do depend on quarterback run, we've seen what Jackson Arnold can do now. Like that doesn't seem like the best recipe. But if you want, that's where you want to lean. That's fine. Jackson Arnold has the ability now.
I think Auburn feels comfortable,
right?
That whatever the game, I guess, dictates, or whatever the South Alabama defense is going to let them have, that they'll be able to make that one work. This text just says, just want to see Auburn dominate this weekend. The Iron Bowl this year is going to be for a playoff spot.
Okay. That means Alabama's turned it around.
They already have, Damon. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're right. You absolutely. They absolutely did. That was quick. That was quick.
Amazing how quickly things change. And I'm sure it'll change again after this week. But Don, he chimes in this morning. He says, good morning, guys. Conrad, you're absolutely right about the offensive line. Pass protection definitely needs some work. Also looking forward to see what the young running back Omar Mabson can do. And he says, by the way, great to see y'all yesterday. Social Taco was packed out. It absolutely was. Yeah, y'all, I was back here, but Pat and Landrum said it was the biggest crowd they've ever had yesterday at Social Taco. So appreciate all of y'all going out there and joining us on three-man front every Tuesday. And then this one here we'll wrap up with for now. It says, Freeze has a track record of losing to smaller schools. How bad would it be for him if South Alabama beats them?
It would be brutal.
It would be really, really bad.
It'd be brutal.
But I would be absolutely floored if that happened. I will just say that.
Yeah. That means
absolutely floored.
That means Peyton Thorne came back and played quarterback.
It means a lot of things went wrong. And again, no offense to South Alabama, it's just there's a discrepancy. And
there is.
At least what we've seen through 2 weeks now for Auburn, I feel pretty confident that they're going to be able to take care of some business. But let's go turn the page to the Alabama side of things here quickly, Damien. What do we want to see from Alabama? So they are going to take another step up in competition. They're going to play the Wisconsin Badgers, who through the first 2 weeks, they are 2-0 on the season, but they have looked like one of the better defensive teams, granted, against the schedule that they've played of Middle Tennessee and Miami, Ohio. But still, I mean, they've put good tape out there on the defensive side of the ball. One thing you do need to know is that Wisconsin has already lost their starting quarterback early on in the season. So Billy Edwards Jr., he got knocked out of their first game against Miami, Ohio. So step in Danny O'Neal, who's actually been pretty solid, right? Had over 300 yards throwing against MTSU. He's got 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions through, I guess, like a game and a half, you would call it, as the starting quarterback there for Wisconsin now. So, he can make some things happen right now. Obviously, the Alabama defense is going to be a little bit different than what they've seen the last couple of weeks, or at least you would hope if you're an Alabama fan, it's going to be different than what they've seen the last couple of weeks. But a respectable Wisconsin team that, still has some room to grow under Luke Fickell, obviously, but defensively, they're going to be really, really stout, and they're going to want to run the football. I think you kind of know what you're going to get from Wisconsin football at this point in time. So for Alabama, I think the big thing, you need to see more from the defensive line. Not only, them stopping the run is going to be an integral part of the game and slowing down Wisconsin, but you have to be able to get after the quarterback. And that, I will bring that up for every Alabama game this season if I have to, and next season, and the season after that, and the season after that, because it's been a problem for a few years now when you don't have a Dallas Turner, you don't have a Will Anderson, freak first-round stud edge rusher Alabama cannot get after the quarterback. I've never seen a team like them over the last 2 years that is really good a lot of the times about getting pressure on the quarterback and never, ever finishing one of those pressures. It is uncanny how bad guys like LT Overton are at finishing pressure. It's insane. So they need to be better about that. This would be a great opportunity against, again, you have a backup quarterback who he's got a little experience under his belt, but coming into Bryant-Denny Stadium, you have a chance to send a message to him and that offense very early on, I think. So I think the defensive line going to have a really, really big game. I think similarly for Alabama, right? Can you just get out to an early lead? Because Wisconsin's not built to come back. You get down 14 points early. That's not the kind of game Wisconsin wants, right? They want a grinded out, 17-14 type of football game, right? So if you can get out ahead early, I think you're going to be in a really good spot if you're Alabama. And then I think offensively, right? Can Ty Simpson do the things he did last week now against a much better defense, right? Can he make the same great decisions? Can he be quick with the football? And then also going with that, if Ryan Williams comes back, what do you get from Ryan Williams? That's one of the things for me. Can he step up and remind everybody why he's making $1.8 million, why he's on the cover of the EA college football video game next to Jeremiah Smith, right? We don't have questions about Jeremiah Smith, but we've got him about Ryan Williams now. So can you shut everybody up and remind us of how good of a player you are? And similarly, how does him coming back and moving him around kind of affect that rotation at wide receiver? So those are some of the things for me with Alabama this weekend. But again, I expect it's going to be I think you're going to see a motivated Alabama again. I don't know if they're going to be quite as fiery as last week, but I think you're still going to see a team that very clearly wants to go out there and enforce their will.
Yeah, and I think this goes for both sides of the ball. Can you endure the fist fight? Because that's what Wisconsin is going to make it. Like that's their name. That's their bread and butter as far as being physical. Defensive line, linebackers, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a run-heavy offense. It is. And even if Danny O'Neal plays, you saw him last year, and you could tell that he was not prepared to have come into the game as quickly as he did. But I think for Wisconsin and what their identity is, can Alabama match it up? Because it's the first time, and again, no offense to Louisiana Monroe, but this is the first time since Florida State where you know exactly what the game plan is going to be. They're going to try to establish the run early on. You're not going to see too much tempo. Are you going to be able to withstand the fist fight? Because this will be the next challenge after what you had against Florida State, where there's not going to be much glitz and glamour. It is, exactly what is going to be presented on both sides of the ball. Defensively for Wisconsin, they're going to be fundamentally sound. They're going to be extremely physical. Can the offensive line, when you need that 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, we're not trying to go out here and spread it out and throw the bubble. No, this is Kalen DeBoer is going to call some designed runs, and can the offensive line respond to that? Can they match up the physicality for what Wisconsin is going to bring? It's going to be a slow burn. I think it's going to be one of those that it may be a little iffy early on. You could see a 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. You can see a 14-10 at halftime, and you're kind of sitting a little uneasy. But it's okay. We've endured one half. Can we continue to pile it on? When we have those opportunities, we take advantage of them. And to your point too, if Ryan Williams comes back, do we have a Ryan Williams sighting? Don't necessarily force feed him the ball, but if he is your best receiver, go out here and show it. Because as of right now, Jeremy Bernard has solidified himself as
no doubt about that,
one of the more consistent guys that you have. He's a workhorse. He's kind of been that playmaker that you've been looking for. So now do we see that? Do we see the stable of running backs continue to run the ball effectively? So I think that for both sides of the ball for Alabama, it's can you match the physicality when it's a boxing match now? It's not going to be – again, they could go out there and hang 35 on them real quick, and then we could have another conversation next week of, okay, Alabama may be back. But also – if it is a slow burn, can you endure the race? Like, do you have the endurance to match the physicality? Because, again, week 1, you got hit in the mouth and you didn't respond. You're going to be matched up with that again with Wisconsin because of how they play. Can you respond to that in week 3? And I issue the challenge to Alabama, and I think I'm leaning more optimistic of it. Of, okay, if you play like you're supposed to, you should handle your business, and this game should be over with. But also, if this game does slow down, don't hit the panic button. Just endure the race.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this game to me is about, can you they've said all the right things after the ULM game, right? Of okay, that was a great performance. Yeah, we bounced back. We prepared hard. We were pissed off all week, but now we understand we have to sustain this, right? Can we do that every week? Can we start over every week with that same mindset, that same mentality that we had going into the ULM game? We'll find out, right? And I think that's really what this game is about. And I think for a lot of fans, right, that's probably what this game is about. Is just all right. Can you go out there and let's say you win, 42-10, right? All right, then you feel like you're back on track. And we talked about this yesterday a little bit on three-man front. And again, you don't want to get ahead of yourself, but you just look ahead a little bit. And if you're Alabama, right, if you take care of business in this one, then you start to look at that Georgia game, and we know how important that is. And you start to go, all right, well, if I'm not saying this is going to happen, I'm not predicting this right now, but if you look at that Georgia game and go, we can somehow find a way to win that game in Athens, you find yourself at 3-1. Well, how many of you had Alabama at 3-1 after the Georgia game in the first place, right? And then boom, before you know it, you're back on track. But can you continue to build on what you did last week against ULM the next couple of weeks? Because if you don't do that, then you're not going to beat Georgia, and you might have a hard time with Wisconsin on Saturday as well if you're not prepared. So that's what we're looking for from the Alabama Crimson Tide. But what are you looking for from your team this weekend? We want to hear from you. 205-834-9450. That'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line. Miami Hater, we see you on the phone lines. So we give you the rest of the show. What do you want to see from your favorite team this fall? We'll read your texts, get to your phone calls next on Morning Jocks. 6:49 here on your Wednesday morning. Appreciate you tuning us in right here on JOX. Conrad and Damian here with you before we hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning. They're with you from 7 to 10, then three-man front from 10 to 2, and Paul Feinbaum, of course, from 2 to 6 each and every day right here on your home for college football on JOX. So we're going to hear from your thoughts now on Alabama and Auburn. What do you want to see from those two programs over the weekend, or maybe a different team in the SEC that you happen to root for? So we'll get to your text here on the Courtesy GMC text line momentarily. But first, let's go to Miami Hater, who's been waiting by patiently on the phone lines. How we doing, man?
Hey, good. How are y'all?
Doing well, doing well. What's on your mind this morning?
Hey, man. Okay, I'm going to go underrated and overrated. Underrated, Malcolm Simmons at Auburn. Malcolm Simmons is a stud. And, I don't know what personal issues he's got off the field. That dude is complete. And he's gonna be special one day. Overrated, Ryan Williams and Jalen Mbakwe. I've never seen two recruits come in that were so highly ranked that absolutely have not amounted to anything. And, just show me something. I'm an Alabama fan, okay? So I'm just telling you, if you're the second highest paid receiver in college football, if you want to carry a dog, you want to paint your fingernails, cool. But you got to show me something, dude. And, Jalen Mbakwe, they're changing his positions for no reason because he's never going to see the field.
Yeah, that whole situation was very that's just it's very interesting. I'm with you on that one 100%, right? And then they wanted to go and someone tried to poach him in the offseason, and so they go and stroke a check to keep Mbakwe, but it's like, what are you going to use him for? I get it. It's weird.
Well, I wanted to get your take on it because I know you're a Bama fan too, but it just breaks my heart that we need a defensive lineman up front, and it's like we're paying money for people that don't even see the field. And we got one that, honestly, I don't even think he wants to see the field. He just wants to do podcasts. So, and I'm I'm highly critical of the situation, and I'm not one of these guys that want to fire the coach. I think the coaches put the players in the first game to they were in position to make plays. They just didn't make plays. But man, give me Cole Adams, give me Jeremy Bernard. Let's go. Give me 22 of those guys.
Hey, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. Give me 22 Jeremy Bernards, and I'm going to win a lot of football games.
100%, brother. Anyway, y'all have a great day.
Hey, you too, man. Appreciate you calling in there. So there's an Alabama fan. I think some of the wide receivers are overrated. And I will say, right, Ryan Williams has something to prove. In the Mbakwe situation, maybe that's a long-term play where they see him as a piece in the future, and I have to imagine that's what it is overall. But, yeah, I mean, I'll admit, too, like it is one of those things that you think about sometimes of, all right, how much are we paying this guy to essentially be, the seventh wide receiver on the depth chart right now when, could you use more depth in the secondary? Even though the secondary is pretty good, but, to Miami Hater's point, however much money you're paying him, could that have gone to somebody on the defensive line that would be a difference maker right now? Who knows? But yeah, I think that was a great call there by Miami Hater, and some interesting points there from, as you heard, an Alabama fan himself. But let's get to the Courtesy GMC text line now. That's how we'll wrap up today's show. And this text comes in and says, Kirby's just baiting us the first 2 weeks. He's playing chess, not checkers. Jason also sends in a similar text. He says, Georgia always plays these lesser out-of-conference teams horribly early on, and then they turn around and play Tennessee like a championship caliber team. What makes this year any different? This is coming from a concerned Tennessee fan.
See, that's the mindset that it makes me upset because it sounds like you're scared. And that's what I'm hearing. Because if you're confident in the bunch that you have, you realize that your team in Tennessee has been cooking on all cylinders.
You've just seen it go so poorly for you so many times.
You can't have that mindset. It's the same way with my fandom. You got to rinse them. You got to wipe all that stuff clean, man.
That's why you're an Ole Miss fan now?
Absolutely, man. In 2025, absolutely. You got to take it year by year. Don't. Those are just trends. That's what fear is. It's creeping into the locker room. You got to be confident. You have Joey Aguilar. You don't have Nico as your quarterback anymore. Think about what you've been able to do the past 2 games. Stop being scared.
So there you go. Damian telling you not to be scared. Meanwhile, Damian is switched fan bases from Tennessee to Ole Miss this offseason.
I do not.
So just for anybody.
I have told you. I do not mix religion with fandom.
Gotcha. Lewis chimes in on the Courtesy GMC text line and says, do we even need Ryan Williams? Can we claw back some of that contract? I wouldn't sell all your stock in – again, this is just me personally. he has certainly not lived up to the amount of money that he's making or the hype that he received. In the last 10 games of his career, he has not. I don't think that you're just going to I don't think we're going to, look at Ryan Williams in 10 years and go, "Man, you remember that guy against Georgia? He's a good player. He is very talented. He is also still very young." I think that he will come around. It might just take a little longer than some people want to see. Let's see. We have Alex chiming in. They say underrated players Taylor Green and Omega Blake at Arkansas.
Hey, they're properly rated. It's Arkansas hate week for me. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah, can't. We'll handle that.
You gotta sell it for the fan base. This text rolls in says Gumps are hilarious, giving up on Ryan Williams after glazing him all of last year.
Whoa.
There you go. Let's see. Did y'all see the Twitter clip of the AP voter that moved Florida up 2 spots? Yes, I did. That woman is having a very rough day, to say the least. But that'll do it for us. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m. McElroy and Kublick in the morning. Those guys are up next.